Did you know that three of the most common foods in the average man's daily diet could be quietly stealing your energy, your strength, and even your manhood? Here's something that might shock you. Research from the University of Copenhagen recently found that men who ate a diet high in certain everyday foods gained nearly 2.2 pounds of extra fat mass in just 3 weeks, even when they ate the same number of calories as men eating whole foods. And that was just the beginning. Their testosterone levels dropped, their sperm quality declined, their bodies started changing in ways they never expected. But here's the part that really concerns me. Most men have no idea this is happening. They eat these foods every single day, sometimes multiple times a day, completely unaware of the hidden damage taking place inside their bodies. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly which three foods are causing this damage. You'll understand what they're doing to your body, your hormones, and your long-term health. And most importantly, you'll learn simple, practical steps to protect yourself. This isn't about fear. It's about giving you the knowledge you need to make better choices for yourself and the people who depend on you. Stay with me, because what I'm about to tell you could change how you think about your daily meals forever. My name is Dr. William Lee, and for over 2 decades, I've dedicated my career to studying preventive health, nutrition, healthy aging, and the science behind everyday medical decisions. My mission is simple: to help you understand what modern medical research really says, so you can make informed decisions for yourself and the people you love. Let me start with something that should concern every man watching this video. Over the past 50 years, something troubling has been happening to men's health around the world. Rates of obesity have soared, type 2 diabetes has exploded, sperm quality has plummeted, testosterone levels have been declining steadily for decades. And chronic diseases like heart disease, prostate cancer, and colorectal cancer continue to affect millions of men every year. Now, here's what I want you to understand. These aren't just random changes. They're not just about getting older. Scientists now believe that a significant part of this decline is linked to something you do every single day, something most men never think twice about: what you eat, and more specifically, 3 foods that have become staples of the modern male diet. I want you to think about your typical day. What do you eat for breakfast? What's your go-to lunch? What about dinner? How many times do you reach for something quick and convenient without really thinking about what's in it? In my experience, most men don't think about this at all. They eat what's familiar, what's easy, what tastes good, and they assume that if it's food, it must be fine. But here's the problem. Our food environment has changed dramatically over the past few decades. The foods that are most available, most affordable, and most marketed to us aren't always the foods that are best for our bodies. And for men, some of these everyday foods carry specific risks that most people have never heard about. The research is becoming increasingly clear. Certain foods that men eat regularly, often daily, are linked to increased risks of cancer, heart disease, hormone disruption, and metabolic problems. But here's what I want you to remember. This isn't about never eating these foods again. It's about understanding the risks so you can make informed choices. It's about knowing what's actually happening inside your body when you eat these foods, because the truth is, most men have no idea. And that lack of awareness is exactly what allows the damage to continue day after day, year after year. In the next part, we're going to look at the first of these 3 foods. It's one of the most common breakfast foods in the world. It's marketed as convenient and satisfying, and it's doing more damage to men's health than almost anything else in the average diet. I want you to think about what you ate for breakfast this morning. Was it something that came in a package, something that was quick and easy? If so, you might want to pay close attention to what comes next. Let's talk about processed meats: bacon, sausage, ham, deli meats, hot dogs, pepperoni. These are foods that millions of men eat every single day. They're breakfast staples, they're lunchbox favorites, they're game day traditions, and they're doing serious damage to your health. Here's the first thing you need to know. The World Health Organization's International Agency for Research on Cancer has classified processed meats as a Group 1 carcinogen. That means they are known to cause cancer in humans. Think about that for a moment. Processed meats are in the same category as tobacco and asbestos when it comes to cancer risk. Not because they're equally dangerous, the risk is different, but because the evidence is just as clear. We know they cause cancer. The primary cancer linked to processed meats is colorectal cancer. Research shows that processed meat consumption is associated with an 18% higher incidence of colorectal cancer. But the risks don't stop there. Processed meats are also linked to greater chances of developing stomach cancer. And red meat, which often accompanies processed meats in the diet, is tied to increased pancreatic and prostate cancer risk. Now, here's why this happens. Processed meats contain preservatives like nitrates and nitrites. When these compounds are heated during cooking or even during digestion, they can form substances called nitrosamines, and nitrosamines are known to damage DNA. They promote the formation of free radicals, destructive molecules that damage your cells and increase cancer risk. But cancer isn't the only concern. Processed meats are typically high in saturated fat and sodium. Too much saturated fat increases your levels of LDL cholesterol, the bad cholesterol, which raises your risk of cardiovascular disease. Too much sodium can lead to high blood pressure, heart failure, stroke, and kidney problems. And here's something that many men don't realize. A recent study found that men who ate one more serving of red or processed meat per day had a 17% increased risk of dying from all causes and a 19% increased risk of dying from cardiovascular disease. 17% from just one extra serving a day. Now, I want to be clear about something. I'm not saying you can never eat bacon or sausage again. What I'm saying is that you need to understand the risks and make conscious choices. If you're eating processed meats daily or even several times a week, you're significantly increasing your risk of serious health problems. And for men, these risks are particularly relevant because colorectal cancer, prostate cancer, and heart disease are among the leading causes of death in men. So what can you do? First, reduce your consumption of processed meats. Nutritional experts advise avoiding these high sodium, high fat foods as much as possible. Save them for occasional treats rather than daily staples. Second, when you do eat processed meats, choose options with lower sodium and fewer preservatives. Look for uncured or nitrate-free versions. Third, replace processed meats with healthier protein sources. Eggs, fish, poultry, beans, and legumes are all excellent alternatives. Fourth, if you're eating red meat, choose unprocessed options and limit your intake. Many experts recommend limiting unprocessed red meat to about 8 ounces per week. This is something I often explain to my patients. The small changes you make today can have a huge impact on your health tomorrow. You don't have to give up everything you love. You just need to be mindful. So we've talked about processed meats, the breakfast and lunch staples that are quietly increasing your cancer and heart disease risk. But there's another food that's even more common in the male diet. It's not meat at all. It's something that many men drink every single day, sometimes multiple times a day, and the damage it's doing to your hormones might surprise you. Let's talk about sugar-sweetened beverages, sodas, energy drinks, sweetened teas, fruity drinks, sports drinks. These are beverages that millions of men consume every single day. They're refreshing, they're convenient, they're everywhere, and they're destroying your hormones. Here's what happens when you drink a sugar-sweetened beverage. The sugar enters your bloodstream rapidly, causing a spike in your blood glucose. Your body responds by releasing insulin to bring your blood sugar back down. But here's the problem. Frequent sugar spikes lead to insulin resistance over time. Your cells stop responding to insulin as effectively, and this sets off a cascade of metabolic problems. One of the most concerning effects of this process is on your testosterone. Research shows that insulin resistance is associated with lower testosterone levels in men. In fact, studies have found that testosterone levels are significantly lower in men with impaired glucose tolerance and type 2 diabetes. But here's where it gets even more concerning. High sugar intake doesn't just lower testosterone directly, it also promotes the conversion of testosterone into estrogen. This happens through an enzyme called aromatase, which is found in fat tissue. As you gain weight from excess sugar consumption, you produce more of this enzyme. And more aromatase means more testosterone converted to estrogen. So you end up with less testosterone and more estrogen, not exactly the hormonal balance most men are looking for. And the research is very clear about the risks. Each additional serving of sugar-sweetened beverage per day is associated with a 6% higher risk of metabolic syndrome. Metabolic syndrome is a cluster of conditions that includes high blood pressure, high blood sugar, excess body fat around the waist, and abnormal cholesterol levels. It dramatically increases your risk of heart disease, stroke, and type 2 diabetes. Recent research has also found that higher consumption of sugar-sweetened beverages is associated with greater visceral adipose tissue mass. That's the dangerous fat that accumulates around your organs. This type of fat is particularly harmful because it actively produces inflammatory substances that damage your health. Now, here's something that might surprise you. Even diet beverages aren't necessarily safe. Some artificial sweeteners may impact metabolism and hormone balance as well. And studies have found that artificially sweetened beverage consumption is also associated with greater visceral fat mass. So what can you do? First, significantly reduce your consumption of sugar-sweetened beverages. This is one of the most impactful changes you can make for your health. Replace sodas with water, sparkling water, or unsweetened tea. Second, be aware of hidden sugars. Many beverages that seem healthy, like fruit juices, smoothies, and sports drinks, can contain as much sugar as a soda. Third, if you need a sweet taste, consider using natural alternatives like stevia or monk fruit in moderation. Fourth, pay attention to portion sizes. A serving of soda is often much smaller than what people actually drink. This is something I often tell my male patients. Your testosterone is too important to sacrifice for a sugary drink. The temporary pleasure of that soda isn't worth the long-term damage to your hormones, your energy, and your vitality. So we've covered processed meats and sugar-sweetened beverages. Two common foods that are doing serious damage to men's health, but there's a third food that might surprise you even more. It's not something you'd think of as unhealthy. In fact, it's often recommended as part of a balanced diet. But for men, especially as they get older, this food carries a specific risk that most people have never heard about. Let's talk about dairy. Milk, cheese, butter, yogurt, ice cream. These are foods that many men consume daily. They're sources of calcium, they're sources of protein, they're part of countless meals and snacks, and they may be increasing your risk of prostate cancer. Here's what the research shows. A noteworthy study conducted in Japan found a dose-dependent relationship between dairy product consumption, which is high in saturated fats, and the risk of prostate cancer. The study reported relative risks of 1.63 for total dairy products and 1.62 for a specific saturated fat called myristic acid. To put that in simpler terms, men who consumed more dairy products had a significantly higher risk of developing prostate cancer. But it's not just one study. A large prospective cohort study that included nearly 50,000 men found that a greater intake of fat from dairy was associated with an increased risk of prostate cancer. The hazard ratio was 1.13, meaning a 13% increase in risk. Now, I want to be very clear about something. The evidence on dairy and prostate cancer is still evolving. Not all studies show the same results, and the exact mechanisms aren't fully understood. But the pattern is consistent enough that it deserves your attention. Here's what researchers believe is happening. Dairy products are high in saturated fats, and diets characterized by high consumption of red and processed meats, saturated fats, added sugars, and high-fat dairy have been associated with a significant increase in all-cause mortality. High intake of saturated fats is associated with increased inflammation and oxidative stress, which may contribute to cancer development. Additionally, some research suggests that the hormones naturally present in dairy products, or the way dairy affects your body's own hormone levels, could play a role in prostate cancer risk. This is particularly relevant for men because prostate cancer is one of the most common cancers affecting men. But here's what I want you to understand. This doesn't mean you need to eliminate all dairy from your diet. Dairy products provide important nutrients like calcium and protein. And some forms of dairy, like fermented dairy products such as yogurt, may actually have health benefits. The key is moderation and smart choices. So what can you do? First, choose low-fat or fat-free dairy options instead of full-fat versions. This reduces your saturated fat intake while still providing the nutritional benefits of dairy. Second, consider plant-based alternatives. Unsweetened soy milk, almond milk, and oat milk can be excellent substitutes for cow's milk. Third, limit your consumption of high-fat dairy products like cheese, butter, and ice cream. These are the products with the highest saturated fat content. Fourth, if you have a family history of prostate cancer or other risk factors, talk to your doctor about whether you should limit dairy consumption. This is something I often discuss with my patients who are concerned about prostate health. The choices you make today can have a significant impact on your risk tomorrow. So we've covered 3 foods that are quietly damaging men's health: processed meats, sugar-sweetened beverages, and high-fat dairy. But here's the good news. Understanding these risks is the first step to protecting yourself. In our final part, we're going to bring everything together and give you a practical plan for making healthier choices starting today. Let me bring everything together. We've covered 3 foods that are common in the male diet and that carry significant health risks. Processed meats, bacon, sausage, ham, deli meats, which are classified as carcinogens and linked to colorectal cancer, stomach cancer, and heart disease. Sugar-sweetened beverages, sodas, energy drinks, sweetened teas, which disrupt your insulin sensitivity, lower your testosterone, and increase your risk of metabolic syndrome. And high-fat dairy, milk, cheese, butter, which may increase your risk of prostate cancer. Now, here's what I want you to remember. These foods aren't poisonous. Having them occasionally isn't going to destroy your health. The problem is when they become daily habits, when they're part of your regular routine, when you're eating them without thinking about what they're doing to your body. In my experience, most men don't realize how much of their diet is made up of these foods. They have bacon and eggs for breakfast, they grab a soda with lunch, they have a cheeseburger for dinner, and they do this day after day, year after year, never realizing the cumulative damage they're causing. But here's the good news. Small changes can make a big difference. Start by taking an honest look at your diet. What do you eat in a typical week? How often are you consuming processed meats? How many sugar-sweetened beverages do you drink? How much high-fat dairy do you consume? Once you have that picture, start making changes, one at a time. You don't have to change everything overnight. Replace your morning bacon or sausage with eggs or oatmeal. Swap your daily soda for sparkling water or unsweetened tea. Choose low-fat dairy instead of full-fat versions. These are small changes, but they add up over time. And here's something else to consider. When you reduce these harmful foods, you create room for healthier choices. Foods that actually protect your health, fruits and vegetables, whole grains, lean proteins, healthy fats like those from fish, nuts, and olive oil. Research shows that diets rich in plant-based foods can lower cholesterol, reduce inflammation, and protect against chronic disease. A whole food plant-based diet has even been shown to reverse erectile dysfunction in some cases by improving vascular function. So here's my challenge to you. For the next week, pay attention to what you're eating. Notice how often you consume processed meats, sugar-sweetened beverages, and high-fat dairy, and try making at least one change. Just one. Replace one processed meat meal with a healthier option. Replace one soda with water. Choose low-fat dairy instead of full-fat. See how you feel. See if you notice a difference in your energy, your mood, your overall sense of well-being. Because here's what I believe. Your body is designed to be healthy. It wants to function well. It wants to protect you from disease. But it needs your help. It needs you to give it the right fuel. It needs you to make choices that support its natural ability to heal and thrive. If I could give you just one piece of advice, it would be this. Every meal is a choice. Every choice is an opportunity to invest in your health. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be mindful. Pay attention to what you're putting in your body. Understand the risks. And make the best choices you can as often as you can. Your health is your greatest asset. Protect it, nourish it. And remember, the small changes you make today can have a profound impact on your health for years to come. Thank you for watching. I hope this information helps you make better decisions for yourself and the people who depend on you.